The laughter in the grand, sun-drenched ballroom was a physical thing, a wave of sound that hit me so hard it felt like I couldn't breathe. 300 pairs of eyes were on me, not with love or celebration, but with a mixture of pity and cruel amusement. My fiancé Mark stood at the altar, his handsome face a mask of feigned concern, while his best man, his own brother, held up a projector remote like a weapon. On the giant screen behind them, where a romantic slideshow of our life together was supposed to be playing, was a grainy secret video of me, tearfully confessing my deepest insecurities to my maid of honor, his sister. I'm not good enough for him, my own voice echoed through the silent, horrified church. I'm just a small-town girl. And terrified he'll realize he made a mistake, the video ended. The laughter began. And in my beautiful white dress, holding a bouquet of wilting peonies, I was not a bride. I was the punchline to the cruelest joke I had ever heard. I ran. I didn't just walk. I ran out of that church, my wedding dress trailing behind me like a tattered flag of surrender. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to escape. The sound of that laughter, the sea of pitying faces, and the devastating public ruin of my heart. I ended up hours later, at the one place my shattered mind knew was safe, my late grandmother's bookstore in the small, sleepy town I had tried so hard to leave behind. The dusty page was a sanctuary of silence and stories, a place that smelled of old paper, leather, and lavender. It had been closed for years, a dusty, forgotten relic of a life I thought I had outgrown. I let myself in with the old iron key my grandmother had left me, and in the quiet, book-filled darkness, I finally allowed myself to break. I collapsed onto a worn armchair, my wedding dress a ridiculous, ghostly puddle around me, and I wept until there were no tears left. Mark's family, the powerful old money Hamiltons, had never approved of me. I was a quiet, bookish girl from a working-class family. To them, I was a social climbing anomaly, a temporary amusement for their golden boy. I had tried so hard to win them over, to be the poised, perfect woman they wanted Mark to marry. I had ignored the subtle insults from his mother, the condescending smiles from his sister, Laura, my maid of honor, my Judas. I had believed Mark when he said he loved me, that his family's opinion didn't matter. Have you ever wanted something so badly that you willingly ignore all the red flags? Love can be a form of self-deception. I saw the warning signs, the small cruelties, the casual dismissals. But I chose to see what I wanted to see. A man who loved me, a future that was safe. I was so focused on the fairy tale ending that I didn't realize I was walking into a trap. The next few days were a blur of grief and humiliation. My phone was a relentless barrage of texts and calls, some from my own horrified family, most from reporters who had caught wind of the most scandalous society wedding of the year. I ignored them all. I lived in the bookstore, sleeping on a dusty sofa in the back room, surrounded by the silent, comforting presence of a million untold stories. The bookstore was all I had left of my grandmother. She had been my true north, a woman of quiet strength and fierce independence. She had left the store to me in her will, a gesture I had found sentimental but impractical at the time. Now it was my only refuge. One rainy afternoon, driven by a need to do something, anything, other than relive my own humiliation, I began to sort through the chaos of the closed shop. I dusted shelves, organized scattered books, and went through my grandmother's old desk. In the back of a drawer, I found a small leather-bound ledger that wasn't an accounting book. The pages were filled with my grandmother's elegant, familiar cursive. It was her private journal, filled with notes on rare books, thoughts on literature, and I soon discovered a secret. Tucked into the back of the journal was a letter. It was addressed to me, but it was unsealed, as if she had been waiting for the right time to give it to me. The letter told a story I had never known. It was about a book. Not just any book, but a legendary lost manuscript, the final unpublished novel of a reclusive, celebrated author named Alistair Finch, a man who had been my grandmother's close friend and correspondent for years. In the letter, she explained that Alistair, terrified of the publicity and criticism that had hounded him his entire life, had entrusted the only copy of his final masterpiece to her before he died. He made her promise to keep it hidden, to never let the vultures of the publishing world get their hands on it. My grandmother had honored that promise. The manuscript she wrote was hidden somewhere in this very bookstore, in a place only a true book lover would ever think to look. It felt like a message from beyond the grave. My grandmother, the wisest woman I had ever known, had left me not just a building, but a purpose, a quest. In the midst of my own shattered story, she had given me the chance to become the guardian of someone else's. The world outside saw me as a jilted, humiliated bride. But in the quiet, dusty world of the bookstore, I was something else. I was a protector of secrets. The hunt for the manuscript became my obsession. It was the perfect distraction, a complex literary puzzle that engaged my mind and soothed my broken heart. I searched for weeks. I checked hollowed out books, secret compartments in the desk, loose floorboards. Nothing. I was beginning to lose hope when I remembered my grandmother's favorite reading spot, a small, built-in window seat that overlooked the town square. It was piled high with old, forgotten classics. As I cleared them away, my hand brushed against the inside wall of the seat. It wasn't wood, it was something else. I pushed, and a section of the wall swung inward, revealing a small, hidden compartment. My heart hammered against my ribs. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth and tied with a faded velvet ribbon, was a thick, handwritten manuscript. The title on the first page read, The Silent Garden. It was Alistair Finch's last novel. I was holding a piece of literary history worth millions, a secret my grandmother had protected her entire life. Just as I was holding the manuscript, my hands trembling with the weight of my discovery, the bell above the bookstore door chimed. I looked up, my heart leaping into my throat. Standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the afternoon light, was Mark. He wasn't alone. Beside him stood a man I recognized from the newspapers, a ruthless, powerful literary agent known for acquiring rare manuscripts at any cost. Mark's face was not that of a remorseful fiance. It was the cold, calculating face of a hunter who had finally cornered his prey. "Hello, Clara," he said, his voice devoid of any warmth. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." The cruelty of the wedding, the public humiliation, it all snapped into a horrifying new focus. It wasn't just a malicious prank, it was a strategy. It was designed to break me, to send me running to the one place he knew I would go. My sanctuary had been his destination all along. "What do you want, Mark?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. I clutched the manuscript to my chest. "Don't be naive, Clara," he sneered, stepping into the dusty light of the store. The agent, a man named Silas Thorne, remained by the door, a silent, imposing predator. "My family has been searching for that manuscript for 2 generations. Alistair Finch was my great-uncle. He foolishly entrusted his legacy to your grandmother instead of his own blood. An insult my family has never forgotten." So that was it. My entire relationship, our entire love story, had been a lie. A long, elaborate con designed to get him access to this bookstore, to this secret. He hadn't loved the small-town librarian. He had targeted her, seeing me as the key to his family's obsessive quest. The humiliation at the wedding was just his way of getting me out of the way, of sending me scurrying back here so he could follow. There is a unique kind of pain that comes from realizing your love story was actually a business transaction. Every shared memory, every whispered secret becomes tainted. You weren't a partner, you were a mark. The person you loved was just a character, a role they were playing to get what they wanted. And the heartbreak is not just for the love you lost, but for the love that never existed at all. "It doesn't belong to you," I said, my grip tightening on the manuscript. "Alistair entrusted it to my grandmother. He didn't want your family to have it." Mark laughed, a short, ugly sound. "And he's dead. Your grandmother's dead. And you, my dear, are a public laughingstock with no credibility and no resources. You have 2 choices. You can give me the book, and I will be generous. I'll make sure you're taken care of. Or you can refuse, and Mr. Thorne and I will simply take it. And believe me, no one will believe the hysterical, jilted bride when she tries to file a police report." He was right. He had planned it perfectly. He had isolated me, discredited me, and cornered me. He saw a broken, helpless woman. He didn't see the granddaughter of Eleanor Vance, a woman who had spent her life surrounded by stories of heroes, villains, and unexpected plot twists. "You're right," I said, my voice softening. I let my shoulders slump, playing the part of the defeated woman he expected me to be. "You've won." I held out the manuscript. A triumphant, greedy smile spread across Mark's face. He took a step forward, his hand outstretched. As he reached for it, I did something he never saw coming. I turned and hurled the manuscript not at him, but into the large, cold, stone fireplace that dominated the far wall of the bookstore. "No," he screamed, a sound of pure animalistic rage. Before he could react, I grabbed a heavy iron poker from the hearth. Get out, I said, my voice no longer soft, but a low, dangerous growl. Get out of my grandmother's house. Mark and Thorne stared at me, then at the manuscript lying in the dusty fireplace, and then back at me. They saw the look in my eyes. They saw that the broken girl was gone, and in her place was a woman with absolutely nothing left to lose. They turned and walked out, the bell above the door chiming their defeat. The moment they were gone, I rushed to the fireplace. I hadn't thrown the real manuscript. The real one was now safely tucked back in its hidden compartment. What I had thrown was a decoy of thick, worthless old accounting ledger I had wrapped in a similar oilcloth. It was a desperate, impulsive bluff, and it had worked. I had won the battle, but I knew the war was not over. Mark would be back. He was a man who did not accept defeat. But now I had something I didn't have before. I had a weapon, and I had a purpose. Over the next 6 months, I didn't just hide. I transformed. I reopened the dusty page. The story of my jilted wedding had made me a local celebrity, and people came in droves, first out of curiosity and then for the love of the beautiful, resurrected old store. I found my strength in the quiet rhythms of selling books, of talking to people, of rebuilding a life on my own terms. I also read The Silent Garden. It was a masterpiece, a beautiful, heartbreaking story. But it was more than that. Woven into the narrative was Alistair Finch's own story, a thinly veiled allegory of his relationship with the Hamilton family, their greed, their cruelty, their obsession with legacy. It was a literary time bomb. I contacted a small, independent publisher, a woman known for her courage and integrity. I told her the whole story. She read the manuscript and she saw what I saw, a chance to publish a masterpiece and, in doing so, to expose the truth. The publication of The Silent Garden was a literary event unlike any other. It was a sensation, hailed as a lost classic. But it was the book's backstory that became the real headline. The story of my grandmother's promise, of my humiliation, of the Hamilton family's ruthless, decades-long hunt for the book. It was a story of greed and betrayal that captivated the world. The Hamiltons were ruined, not financially, but socially. Their carefully curated reputation was shattered. They became pariahs, symbols of old money greed and corruption. Mark, the golden boy, was now a public villain, the man who had tried to steal a literary treasure from the woman he had publicly humiliated. 6 months to the day after I had fled my own wedding in tears, I stood in the doorway of my thriving bookstore, a place I had brought back to life. A television in the corner was playing a news report about the scandal, showing a picture of Mark, his face a mask of disgrace. The bell above the door chimed, and a young woman came in, her eyes shining. "Are you Clara Vance?" she asked. "I read the story. I wanted to tell you how brave you are." I smiled, a real smile this time, wide and genuine and free. The joke wasn't on me anymore. The punchline had changed. I hadn't married a prince. I had defeated a dragon. And in the ruins of my fairy tale, I had found something far more valuable. I had found myself.